Once we know the consonants and the vowels, the next piece up in terms of size is syllables, the parts of words. Hello, I'm Prof Brian, we're at TechScroll.com, and this is an overview of Chapter 2 of Reading Biblical Hebrew, Introduction to Grammar. Understanding Hebrew syllables is important, not just because it helps us to pronounce words correctly by knowing where they divide into syllables, but also because it helps us to understand the changes in how a word may be spelled. In Chapter 1, when we learned the vowels, we had to learn their class and their length. That's because sometimes the same word will be spelled in a slightly different way. Those changes generally have to do with a vowel getting longer or shorter, but staying in the same vowel class. In this chapter, we're going to learn what and why is going on with those changes. Chapter 2 covers the 7 syllable principles, the construct state of singular nouns, and 4 other marks, 3 accent marks, and the method. When we learn the 7 syllable principles, by the end of the chapter, you should memorize these 7 abbreviations, know what they stand for and what they mean, and be able to describe the syllables of words with them. They come in groups. 3 of them start with an A, meaning the accented syllable has certain characteristics. 2 of them start with a P, that means the pre-accented syllable, which we call the pretonic syllable, and then there are 2 others. We're going to apply those principles to the construct state of singular nouns. So here's just a quick overview of what's coming in that regard. In Chapter 1, we had the vocabulary word davar. It's spelled with a kametz under the dalet and a kametz under the bet. But sometimes this word does not get its own accent. It's as if the following word functions as the accented syllable, and then these vowel changes occur. Those will be explained as we learn the 7 syllable principles. The point for the moment is for us to realize that this word has now been tied to the next word, both phonetically, that is the way it sounds, right? The vowels changed, and in terms of its meaning. Davar on its own can be something like the word is encouraging, but davar tied to the next word or constructed with the next word, hence construct state, means the word of something, the word of the king, the word of the prophet, the word of the Lord is encouraging. Then we're going to learn 3 accent marks. Hebrew has lots and lots and lots of accent marks, but we're only going to learn 3 for the moment. The one that you've already seen back in Chapter 1 is this one. It's called an ola. We're going to use it to represent all standard levels of accent. It's the one that's most commonly used in textbooks and journals in order to indicate an accented syllable. Then we have the atnak, and then we have sof pasuk. These 2 are going to represent to us heavy accents, or what can be called pausal accents. These accents are used at the end of a phrase or the end of a clause to do what I'm doing now, which is placing an extra heavy accent at the end of a string of words. Plus, because there are a couple more pausal accents, these ones have another couple of jobs. The atnak occurs in the conceptual middle of every verse. That doesn't mean the middle word of a verse, but if you took a verse and you divided it into 2 ideas, the end of idea 1 would end with the atnak. The end of idea 2 would end with the sof pasuk. So this is made up of the little line, which is called a saluk, and then these 2 diamonds at the end. And this occurs on the last word of every verse of the Hebrew Bible. Then we're also going to learn the method, which looks like this little line. And you might say to yourself right off the bat, that looks an awful lot like that little line. How will I be able to tell them apart? Well, the saluk occurs on the last word of every verse of the Hebrew Bible. And so anytime you see that little line on any other word in the verse, it's a method. What's a method do? Well, we'll just give an illustration here with this word. And this is the same word spelled 2 different ways, and it's been affected by the accent. Here we have shamaru. We have an atnak telling us this is a pausal form, a heavy accent, and that's the reason why we have this long vowel under the mem. Here we have shamaru, and we have a regular accent, what we call a contextual accent down here at the end. If we didn't have this method, we might start to think, is that shomru? Is that the short O comates, or is it sha maru? Is it the long a comates? And the method can help us to know that it's the long a comates by telling us, hey, this is an open syllable. Now, there will be other clues as we learn more about Hebrew to help us to be able to pronounce that correctly, whether or not there's a method there. But this is one of the main jobs that a method does, tells you that you have an open syllable there. So all the details are in the textbook. They're summarized nicely on page 1 of your text scroll study sheets. And now we'll take a closer look at the 7 syllable principles. As we take that closer look at the syllable principles, I encourage you to have your text scroll study sheets out so that you can consult the handy summary as needed while we work our way through the grammar illustration and text scroll. The first thing that we need to do is define what a Hebrew syllable is for the speaking community. Hebrew syllables begin with a consonant. That is, we have to say meh and then lek. We can't say mel and then ek. We can do it in English. They did not do that as a speaking community in Hebrew. So we are always going to begin our syllables with a consonant and not with a vowel. Are there any exceptions? Well, there is one exception. The Hebrew word for and is a consonantal vav that gets stuck to the beginning of a word, but there are a few environments in which that vav will turn into a shurek, and at that point it is a vowel. Other than that, no exceptions. Every Hebrew syllable begins with a consonant. It's da, var. It is not going to be dav, ar. The second part of the definition is that each syllable has one and only one full vowel. So in this word, devarim, we have 2 syllables. Deva is 1 syllable, reem is the 2nd syllable. Now, you might want to quibble, and you might want to say, this is a vocal shava, and I feel like that is a vocalic enough something to call it a syllable. Or, in my linguistic training, I would want to call this a syllable. But we're defining this for the speaking community. The speaking community did not consider that to be a syllable. The Hebrew grammarians wrote on this matter, and so we know what their opinion is, and it is going to be best and safest for us in learning our Hebrew to treat it the way they did. What that means is there's going to be a lot less rules for us to learn if we'll just say to ourselves, vocal shavad does not count as a syllable. Okay, every Hebrew syllable starts with a consonant, and it's got one and only one full vowel. Shavas don't count. Now, each syllable has 3 different characteristics. Syllables are either open or closed. And what we mean by that is, does it end in a vowel, in which case we call it open, like dava or meh or da, or does it end in a consonant, in which case we call it closed, like reem or lek or var. They end in a consonant. Then syllables are either long or short, and that's based on their vowel, their full vowel. So in the case of reem or dava or da, it's a long syllable, just because it's a long vowel. And then a short vowel means that we have a short syllable, so both syllables of melek are short because they have a short vowel. And it doesn't matter whether it's open or closed. Then syllables are also related to the accent. When we say that they are related to the accent, we simply mean where are they in the word in relationship to the accented syllable. If the syllable has the accent, well, duh, we call it the accented syllable, like meh of melek, var of davar, or ka of malka. Some people call it the tone syllable, but it's more common these days to call it the accented syllable. However, from when tone was the way to talk about them, that has been kept over in other labels. For example, if the syllable is after the accented syllable, it is post-tonic. It is post after the tone or accented syllable, like lek of melek. If it is before the accented syllable, we call it pre-tonic. So that would be da of davar, and deva of devarim, and mal of malka. And if it is farther in front of the accented syllable, that means it's in front of the pretonic syllable, we call it distant. Some people would call it propretonic. Some people would call it antipretonic. But if we get words that are longer and longer, all the syllables up here are going to follow the same characteristics, so we'll just call them all distant syllables. Now that we know the categories for the 3 characteristics used to describe Hebrew syllables, we can talk about the 7 syllable principles themselves. Now, our takeaway at the end is we want to know these abbreviations and what they stand for, and we want to be able to rattle them off and know what they mean really well. These simply describe the way that the speaking community talked. The first 3 deal with the accented syllable, and the next 4 deal with anything that is in front of the accented syllable. The 3 for the accented syllable only apply in the noun world: nouns, adjectives, even prepositions. The ones that apply to the positions in front of the accent apply to the noun world and the verb world both. Let's take a closer look. ACL stands for accented, closed, and long. For example, var of davar. It ends in a consonant, so it's closed. The kametz is long. It has the accented. It's accented, closed, long. In fact, it is the syllable principle that is advising you to know that this is the long kametz, because that's the rule: accented, closed, long. So when you look at the vowel, and if you can't tell just by the look of it, is it long or short, then you know it's long because of the rule. The same thing is happening up here with Ela. There are 2 lameds because there's a dagesh forte there, and this is accented and it's closed, and Seire is long. A second common form is accented, open, and short, and that would be like meh of melech or like de of sadeh. Meh ends in a vowel, so it's open, and sagol is short, so it is open and short, and it has the accent. With sadeh, we have to remember that the hey isn't a real consonant. It's a phony hey. It's a mater lectionis. So this is actually an open syllable. It ends in the sagol, and it has the accented. So it is accented, open, and short. The word Ela is actually pretty odd here, because you see sagol hey up there, and you say, well, couldn't that have been accented, open, short? And yeah, sagol hey can be accented, open, short. This word is just a little bit weird, and since it's in your vocabulary, I thought it would be good to have as an example at this point as well. The third really common way of having the accented syllable is to have it be on a kametz hey, as in malka. Kametz hey really is the primary feminine singular noun ending. So it is a long but the hey is not closing the syllable. It's a mater lectionis as well. So it's open and long, but the only accented open and long thing you can have is an open, long kametz hey. So it just gets its own rule, AQH. When we move up in front of the accent, we've really only got 2 options. We have either pretonic open long, such as da of davar, or we have pretonic closed and short, such as mal of malka. And then we have SPP, shava in problem position. Now we need to underscore here that even though we're talking about the 7 syllable principles, we are not talking about a syllable per se in this case. We're talking about a position in relationship to the pretonic syllable. So we could also call SPP more technically shava in propretonic position, but we don't mean the propretonic syllable. Let's take a closer look at that. So a shava can close any syllable, but not every shava is shava in problem position. If we look at mishpat, we have our accented closed long syllable at the end, and then mish is the pretonic syllable. Okay, shava in problem position is the spot in front of the pretonic vowel. So if we had something on the front of this word, like the preposition bet or something, that would be in problem position, and it would get a shava. Or here's a case where we've added an ending to the word. We have team at the end, accented closed long, and then pa, pretonic open long, and now the shin is in front of the pretonic vowel, so this is problem position. SPP refers to a position, not a syllable. The propretonic position normally reduces its vowel to a shava. So for the language community, they just had a regular habit of reducing any vowel that's normally in that spot all the way down to a shava. And that's why Rabbi Dr. Yerushalmi, from whom I get the title, would call it Shava in problem position. It's a problem for the speaking community to keep the vowel there. Now, it doesn't seem like much when we're talking about mishpat and mishpatim because you've got a closed short syllable in both cases. But for the moment, let's just look at divarim compared to mishpatim. They both end in an accented closed long. They both have pretonic open long. But because there's nothing else out here, this shava in problem position has to be part of the pretonic syllable. And because there is something out in front, the shin, shava in problem position, has to be in the distant syllable. This shava is a vocal shava. This shava is a silent shava. This shava is in the pretonic syllable. This shava is in the distant syllable, but they are both shava in problem position. Let's go back to our list of the 7 syllable principles. And maybe it's even emphasized more when we have divarim versus midbarim because it's built on dalet beit resh in both cases. When we have something out here in front that pulls the dalet away, it's a silent shava in the distant syllable. When there's nothing out there, it's a vocal shava, it's in the pretonic syllable. So already we've seen the same thing that we see down here. If our word is long enough to have something in front of the shava in problem position, then it's going to be a short vowel. If it gets even longer than that, most of the time we're going to have shava, short vowel, shava, short vowel, shava, short vowel alternating, but you can't make Hebrew words too much bigger than this. Occasionally we will have a way to have an ending and some kind of prefix, so that in this spot we would have not just one consonant with a vowel, but an entire closed short syllable. And then you would have 2 shavas in a row, and the first one would be silent, and the second one would be vocal. And so it wouldn't be exactly this, but for the most part, this is what we're going to find. In front of shava in problem position, whenever we've only got one letter, we do have a short vowel, unless something else operates on it, which we will get to in chapter 4. So we need to know these 7 syllable principles really, really, really well. We need to just, it's one of those know it like the back of your hand sorts of things. Accented closed long, accented open short, accented comates hey, those rule the noun world. Pretonic open long, pretonic closed short, shava in problem position or propretonic position, and if something is in front of that, then it's preceded by a short vowel, and those rule all the parts of speech for the entire language community. Okay, so let's do a little bit of work at taking words apart and putting the labels on in practice. So here we have the word chakam, and we want to be able to divide it into syllables. And we're remembering that every syllable starts with a consonant, and every syllable has one and only one full vowel. So generally the thing to do is to get in between the 2 vowels, and we can separate the word there. And then we're going to use this train in order to put our labels on. So when we look at this, we say, well, is it open or closed? And we say it's closed because it ends in a consonant. And then is it long or is it short? Well, it's a kamate, so theoretically we don't know, but we do know our rules, which are accented, closed, long, and we expect that most Hebrew words are accented on the last syllable, and so by default we're going to assume the last syllable is accented unless it won't work. And so accented, closed, long, this is the caboose of the word, and we want to start by thinking at the end of the train and then working our way forward. If this is the accented syllable, and it is, what is this one? Is it open or closed? Well, it's open because it ends in a vowel, and is that vowel long or short? Well, you might say, well, comates can be either long or short o, but what's the rule? It's pretonic, open, and long. And so that fits. And so, in fact, the rule helps us to know that this is a long ah, but that's how we're going to build our words. Okay, let's go to the next word. This is, well, if I pronounce it first, that will kind of give things away. Can we divide the syllable here? No, we can't. Why? Because we would have the second syllable starting with a vowel. We can't do that, so we're going to have to divide our word here. Is this open or closed? It's closed because it ends in a consonant. And is it long or short? Cholam vav is always long, so this is accented, closed, and long. And what about this one? Is it open or closed? It's open because it ends in a vowel. And is it long or short? Again, we are expecting, and we do have, pre-tonic, open, long. Let's put those back. Go to the next one. Where are we going to divide our word? We're going to divide it right here. We have zakein, and yes, it just is like the others. We have accented, closed, long, and we have pre-tonic, open, long. Happy Hebrew syllables. Now we have Torah. Where are we going to divide this word? Yes, we're going to divide it right here, and we have two syllables, Torah. And what is this? If we're expecting accented, is it open or closed? It is open because that's a phony hey. That's a mater lectionis. But we also notice, as soon as we've called it a hey, that this is a kametz hey. So this shouldn't take a lot of effort if we know our syllables really well. And then what about this? Again, this is pre-tonic, and it's open, and it's long. It ends in a vowel, and cholam vav is always long. Next example. Here we have mateh, and there's a dagesh forte in that tet. So this is the actual structure of the word here. We have mateh. And this ends in a hey. Is it a kametz hey? It is not a kametz hey, so this one's off the table. But is it a real hey? Well, there's no mapik in the hey, so it's a phony hey. It's a mater lectionis. This is an open syllable, and segol is short. So we have accented open short here. And what about this? This is ending in a consonant, so it's a closed syllable, and it is pre-tonic, closed, and patak is short. It's always short. So this is our train now. We have AOS and PCS. Let's take another look. Oops, I forgot to put the cars away. Now we have mitzvah. This ends in a hey. That should catch our attention. Is it kametz hey? Well, yes, it is. By the way, am I going to divide here? Or am I going to divide here? Generally speaking, we want to separate here on the assumption that that's going to be a silent shavah. And we will come across some cases where that's not going to be true, and then we'll talk about them when we get there. But yes, this ends in kametz hey, so this is accented kametz hey, and this is pre-tonic, closed, and short. Chirik can sometimes be long. That's why we might have asked the question, would it have been like this with a pre-tonic open long? But at least at the beginning of what we're doing in Hebrew, our chiriks are always going to be short, and this is just standard theory. Pre-tonic closed short is how they talked. Okay, let's put the cars away and do another one. Now we've got an issue. Where are we going to divide this, and how are we going to analyze it? If we have this, we have accented kametz hey, no problem. And we have pre-tonic open long, no problem. Cha-chama, cha-chama, which in fact is a word. On the other hand, what if we divide our word here? Well, we still have accented kametz hey, but this would be pre-tonic, closed, and short. That would be the short o kametz, chokma, which is also a word. And so what's the deal? Well, nouns are going to have pre-tonic closed short here. This is the second radical. When we talk about Hebrew words, they usually have three root letters, which are also called radicals. Chet is the first radical, kaf is the second radical in this case, and then mem is the third radical. And so for nouns, the second radical gets silent shavah, and for verbs, the second radical gets vocal shavah. verbs are off in chapter 10. So we're assuming we're dealing with nouns. And so we're assuming that this is pretonic closed and short, and indeed it is. This is chokmah, wisdom, whereas chakmah would be the verb, she is wise. Okay, we'll put the cars away and go to the next word. Here we have mishpat. So we're going to divide our word here. What kind of dagesh is that in the pay? Is it dagesh lene or dagesh forte? Well, it can't be a dagesh forte. Why is that? Because forte follows a full vowel. It has to be a dagesh lene, and therefore this has to be a silent shava. If it could have been a vocal shava, then we could have been debating, do we have mi shafat or something? But we actually are going to affirm, yes, this is a noun, not a verb. And because this is a dagesh lene, this has to be a silent shava. So our structure is mishpat, and we've seen this many times now. This is accented closed long and pretonic closed short. Okay, we have something a little bit longer in zikenim. And we are going to find our two full vowels and get in between them and separate our syllables, because each syllable gets one and only one full vowel. So at the end here we have accented closed and long, right? Ends in a consonant, and its vowel, chirik yod, is always long. That makes this pretonic. So it's either going to be pretonic open long or pretonic closed short. It ends in a vowel, so it is pretonic open and long. But then you'll notice that we have zayin out here. And it is in front of the pretonic vowel. So this is, yes, this is problem position. So we're just going to grab our shava in problem position and set it inside the car. It's part of the pretonic syllable. Here's eretz, and we have something a little bit different now. We're going to get in between the two full vowels and separate into syllables, and we look at the last syllable where we expect the accent, and we say, it's closed, and so that would be this one, right? Accented closed. Oh, wait a minute. Segol is short. This one doesn't work. So rather than labor through all of these, because we know it's closed and it's not accented closed long, we say, hey, this is one of those cases where we've got a post-tonic syllable, and now we want to look at the second to the last as the probable accented syllable and just see if it works. So if this is accented, is it open or closed? Well, it's open. And is segol long or short? It's short. It's accented open short. So there's a whole bunch of words that are like this. They have a post-tonic syllable that's closed and short, and then they've got accented open short up here. So we're going to see this quite a bit. Next we have mishpachat. So we have to divide our syllables, and we're going to get here in between the full vowels. That's for sure a separation of syllables. And then where are we going to put this? Well, we're hopefully seeing a pattern that it goes with the vowel preceding in terms of syllable structure. Also, we have a dagesh lene in the pay, right? Because it doesn't follow a full vowel. It has to be lene, and correspondingly means this has to be a silent shava. And a silent shava has to close a syllable, so it goes back here. When we look at the end, is it open or closed? And the answer is that it's closed, but it is not accented closed and long because patak is short. So we're going to use our post-tonic caboose. What do we have here? Open or closed? It's open, and it is a short vowel. I'm going to have to move my cars over a little bit. Maybe spread my word out a little more. And so what is this thing in front of the pre-tonic vowel? Yep, that would be shava in problem position. And what then is here? Well, that's our preceded by a short vowel, and it's going to be carrying the shava in problem position. So we have three syllables, a post-tonic syllable, an accented open short syllable, and a distant syllable, which is comprised of both shava in problem position and it's preceded by a short vowel. Okay, cars away, on to the next example. Mishpacha. When we look at this one, we have to divide between the full vowels, and then we're recognizing dagesh lene here, so this has to be silent shava here, so that has to be part of a syllable back there that it's closing. And when we look at the end and see kametz he, we're starting to get good at this and say, aha, accented kametz he. Easy peasy. Then here we've got an obviously open syllable, and so we're going to say it's long kametz because the syllable principles tell us it ought to be. And then this is what? You got it. That's shava in problem position. Does it go in this car? No, it doesn't. It goes up here, and it's preceded by a short vowel. Whoops, let go. So we have another 3-syllable word, but it's got a different structure than the last one because it's accented at the end. Here we have pretonic open long, and the distant syllable is closed and short. It's got shava in problem position and preceded by a short vowel. And there we are back to the beginning. So we got a pretty good amount of examples in there. You'll have more opportunities in TextScroll to practice dividing words into syllables and labeling them. But right now we're going to go ahead and finish the material in the chapter and show you where this is all headed. Here we're going to apply the syllable principles to understanding singular nouns in Hebrew. Hebrew nouns have 3 traits: gender, number, and state. In Hebrew, there are only 2 genders for the nouns, masculine and feminine. They don't have a neuter category for it. So whenever a noun is replaced by a pronoun, it's always going to be the ones for he and she. Then we have a singular and plural and a dual, and we'll learn more about dual in the next chapter, but we're only going to be dealing with singular nouns in these examples. The 2 states that we have in Hebrew are called absolute state and construct state. Absolute state is what English considers normal. That's when you got the word, you're using it however you want to use it, and it's the standard form that you would find in the dictionary. Construct state means that the noun is in a construction with the next noun. It's sort of attached to that next noun, both phonetically and in terms of its meaning. So this construction affects the meaning. The absolute state for davar would just be the word, but the construct state would be the word of, and then you have to fill in the blank. So if it was the word of the queen, word would be in construct and queen would be in the absolute state. But we have to see what that looks like in terms of its form. This construction affects the accent, which can then affect the length of the vowels, and it's going to follow all the syllable principles. So let's maybe just try it mentally before we go there. Let's say you have malka in the absolute state, and you put davar in front of it to say the word of the queen. We're going to pretend that, well, we don't have to pretend. Malka has the accent, and we're going to treat that entire word as if it is the accented syllable in relationship to davar. Davar is now going to end with a pretonic syllable. What would it look like? Okay, let's take a look at the examples. So one of the things that happens when you learn the vocabulary word davar and you see it with a kametz under the dalet and a kametz under the bet is that you sort of think that that's where the word has its origin, or that anything that happens with davar is changing that kametz into something else. That's not actually true. Originally, davar would have been something like davarum, and we would have had a patak, a short vowel under each of those. So when we make the masculine, singular, absolute form, we are actually lengthening these. The ending for masculine singular nouns is nothing. It's 0. So we're going to put that on. Boom, and it brings the accent with it, and now the accent principles are going to go into effect. We're going to divide the syllables. We want, or the speaking community wants, accented closed long, and so we're going to zap that patak and turn it into a kametz. And the speaking community also wants pretonic open long, so this is how we end up with davar. Right? If we went farther back in time, it would have looked different. But the pataks have turned into kametzim, into kametzes. And we have word. But when we're going to say word of the queen, we're tying it to the following word, and we're saying that that following word in its entirety behaves like the accented syllable for this word. Let's see what we mean here. We throw on the zero ending, let it go a little bit too soon, and we divide, and here we want to have pretonic closed short. That doesn't take much effort because it's already closed and short if we understand that it was coming from patak. So give that a check mark. But up here, this is problem position. This is the spot in front of the pretonic vowel, so we get shava in problem position. And when we want to say word of the queen, we're going to say not davar, but davar malka. And when I say davar, there's hardly any vowel up here, and I've represented the change in how I said it with a shava, and there's less of a vowel here, and I've represented how I've said it with patak. And it's kind of nice because that change in spelling is this huge clue that says, I'm different, I'm tied to the next word, my meaning is limited by the next thing. When we come to feminine nouns, most of them end in kametze, and that's the origin of the rule, accented kametze, from our 7 syllable principles. So when we stick a kametze on the end of that, it's already a happy Hebrew syllable at the end, so we can just check that off. And then we go to the beginning, and we're looking for pretonic closed and short, and we've already got that, so we're all good. Malka is queen. However, this kametze is kind of a late development. Originally, it was a patak tav, but over time the speaking community started to just drop those final tavs, and they lengthened this vowel, and so we have this very characteristic kametze for feminine nouns. Sometimes we will see feminine nouns in the absolute state with a tav, and then its pattern is going to be very much like we saw with melech, where you have 2 short vowels in a row. We'll have 2 pataks at the end and a posttonic syllable there. But for now, this is what we mostly see, kametze on the end of feminine singular absolute nouns. But that original patak tav is preserved in the construct state. So we stick patak tav on there, and we divide it into syllables. I'm going to interrupt that. And the entire final word is effectively the accented syllable now, because queen is tied to that word. What we're looking for now is pretonic closed and short, and well, happy day, it's already pretonic closed and short. After that, we're looking for shava in problem position, right? So if this is the pretonic vowel, this is problem position. Is this problem position up here? That's part of the pretonic syllable. But this is. And, well, what do you know? We already have shava in problem position, so we can check that off. And in front of that, we would look for a short vowel, and it is preceded by a short vowel. So also very happy. We don't have to have any changes to our word here. But because of this construct state, this cozy relationship between the construct noun and the following absolute noun, that protected that original tav, and it didn't drop away in the construct state. So that's what we're doing as the final piece of this chapter, is we're learning a couple of noun endings. The noun ending of nothing normally goes on masculine nouns. There will be a few feminine nouns that it goes on. And we can tell whether we have the absolute state word or the construct state word of by the syllable principles, because this has accented closed long and pretonic open long, and this has its last syllable being closed and short, and accented closed short is not a rule. So this is pretonic closed short. This is shava in problem position, and that means the next word is effectively the accent, and this is tied to it, and so it's in construct. It's constructed with it. For feminine nouns, kametze is the most common thing for feminine singular absolute. And it's not as simple as saying patak tav is always going to be the construct state for a feminine noun, because there will be times when the tav has survived for the absolute state. But the thing is, this is going to be the end of the word being pretonic closed and short, because the accented syllable is effectively the following word. So queen and queen of. So now you know 4 different noun forms. And guess what? That's 40% already. We'll get the rest of them in Chapter 3. Before we close this out, I want to show you the place in TextScroll where you can do more practice at dividing words and labeling their syllables. So here we are at syllabification practice. It's a different interface. We're not using the trains, but the concepts are similar. We've got the abbreviation reminders down here, but again, if you've got your TextScroll study sheets out, you can use that for a quick reminder if you need to. And in this case, we're taking the quill and we are using it to divide the words. So with divarim, which we've seen before, we're going to put it in between the full vowels, and there we have 2 different syllables. And then you can just go ahead and grab these labels and stick them wherever is convenient. This is accented closed long. This is pretonic open long. And yes, this has a Shiva and problem position. You can then see the answer by clicking next, and it'll show you the word and it'll label the syllables for you. And when you go on to the next word, it'll put everything back. And so here you have the construct state. So in these examples, you will have cases where the following word is effectively the accent, and because it's construct, if you want to put a quill in there, a feather in there, you can. But then when you would come here, you would say, do I put one here? And the answer would be no, because Shiva is not a full vowel, so it doesn't count. You just have one syllable here. And then because the accent's down here, you're only going to look in the pretonic options. And this one will be pretonic closed and short. And it has Shiva and problem position all as part of the pretonic syllable. And you click here and you see the answer. You can go through the list randomly, or you can go through an order. And if you get to class and you say to your professor, I didn't understand number 21, you can put 21 in there and hit return, and then you're at number 21. Okay, so this should give you more practice, and then of course that's the main thing that you do in your workbook. So at this point we've covered the 7 syllable principles. We have also covered the construct state of singular nouns, which depends upon the 7 syllable principles. And then in this chapter we have an objective of learning 4 additional marks. These are part of the accent system. We referred to them in the introduction, and then of course they're covered in your textbook. But I thought it might be nice to look at a biblical passage and see these marks in that context. So here we are in Genesis 1. This computer program displays each verse as beginning a new line, which is not how it would occur in a scroll. But it does make it easy for us to look at the end of every verse and see that the last word is followed by the 2 little diamonds that we call a sof pasuk. And every word that has a sof pasuk also has a little vertical line with one of the vowels, which is the saluk. And the saluk and sof pasuk work together, and they mark the last word of every verse. It's not quite like a period, because a verse can have more than one sentence in it, and any verse that does so will not be using that to mark the end of the first sentence. It only occurs at the end of the verse. If we did have a verse that had 2 sentences, it might be divided by the atnak. So here we have, and God said, let there be light, period, and there was light, period. But here it's atnak and then sof pasuk. And almost every verse in the Bible has an atnak in it at the conceptual middle. So not the middle word of the verse, but at what's considered the middle of 2 concepts inside the verse. Another mark that we're learning in this chapter is the metheg, and here is a metheg. It's with the kamates underneath the lamed on la rakia. And then this also is a metheg on tad she. A metheg can do more than one job, and most of the time in textbooks or journal articles, unless we're discussing the entirety of the system of the marks, the main purpose for using one is to show that the following Shiva is a vocal Shiva. For example, here we have vayihi, and so the metheg, it's both a secondary accent. I'm sorry, it keeps changing what it highlights. It is both a secondary accent, and it is telling us that the following Shiva is vocal, or another way to say it is that in those cases it's marking this vowel as being an open syllable. It's not the only thing it does. The one back here, this is not an open syllable. But in terms of when you're reading an article or a textbook, what's the main purpose somebody is going to choose to put a metheg in there, and it's going to be to mark that particular structure. We saw that in the textbook when we were talking about wisdom versus she is wise, chokmah versus chachama. And the metheg will be used with chachama in order to show how to pronounce it properly. The most common symbol used in textbooks to mark accented syllables is the ola, which looks sort of like an arrow pointing to the left. But it's a very uncommon. In fact, I don't see any on the page here, but you'll see them and have seen them frequently enough that I'm not worried about their absence there. What's going to happen in the textbook over time is we'll slowly start to add some of the accent marks in, and we'll start with the more major ones that are the most worth paying attention to. So just like we said that Atnak and Sof Basuk kind of divided up conceptually, there are a few others that divide the text into chunks, as it were. So not always a clause, it might be a phrase. And those are the ones that sort of look like a vowel being written above the line. So for example, here's Elohim, and there's two dots above, and it kind of looks like a shavah. It's a zakef, but it kind of looks like a shavah. Here is one that looks like a segol at the end of ha-rakia. Right? It's three dots. It's facing the other direction of a segol, and it's above the line. It's actually called a segolta. Here's on Elohim, this time there's sort of a small diamond up there. You could confuse it as like a large chirik on top of the line. Don't worry about learning the names right now. But these are three marks that all sort of look like a vowel written above the line. They're also all major accent marks. And so if you would take the text in between those and go from one to the next, you would generally have a chunk of syntactically related words. Now the system has a lot more to do with prosodic elements, marking the rhythm of tone and stress in order to do a good public reading or even a chanting or singing of the text. That's not something that we cover in the textbook. But as we are talking about the system of accent marks, I thought it might be good for you just to see here's all the stuff that there is, and to know that there is more coming. And even if you're not training to be a cantor to sing the text, you will be able to benefit from learning about half a dozen of these, because they'll help us divide the text into manageable pieces as we are learning to read Biblical Hebrew. So Chapter 2 takes us a step beyond the level of just recognizing consonants and vowels and trying to put them together into words. Now we're understanding the structure of words. We're getting clarity on whether those vowels have to be either long or short. We've been introduced to a few of the noun endings and this idea of construct state. So we're moving beyond letters in words up to words and relationships with each other, so that this construct state noun can be tied to the next noun and its meaning. So we're making real progress in reading Biblical Hebrew, but now it's time for you to get busy and do the work of getting this stuff all ingrained. You need to know those 7-syllable principles like the back of your hand. You need to be able to look at syllables in Hebrew words and identify their characteristics, because we are going to keep using these principles all through this book. All right, get at it. Have fun.